Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the endless stream of data flowing across his monitors. The Deep Space Communications Array on Luna had been his workplace for 3 years now, and most nights were exactly the same. Routine transmissions between trading vessels, weather reports from mining stations, and the occasional personal message sent across the vast emptiness of space. Tonight felt different, though, like something important was about to happen. The communications center was quiet except for the gentle hum of machinery and the soft clicking of keyboards. Jake was alone on the night shift, which he actually preferred. No supervisors looking over his shoulder, no chattering coworkers disturbing his concentration. Just him and the endless ocean of signals washing over the Sol system from every corner of the galaxy at exactly 0347 hours. Something unusual appeared on his secondary monitor. The signal was weak and heavily degraded, almost lost in the background noise of deep space. Jake leaned forward and adjusted the filters, trying to clean up the transmission. Most technicians would have ignored it as random interference, but Jake had learned to trust his instincts during his years of monitoring alien communications. The signal was definitely artificial. It had the structured patterns that only came from intelligent transmission, not the random chaos of natural space phenomena. Jake ran it through the translation protocols, his heart rate increasing as he recognized fragments of galactic standard mixed with something else. The transmission was coming from the direction of the Kepler 442 system, nearly 800 light-years away. Jake worked for 20 minutes to reconstruct the message, using every tool at his disposal to pull coherent words from the static. When the translation finally appeared on his screen, he felt his blood turn cold. The message was a desperate plea for help from a species he had never heard of before, the Zilani. They were describing an invasion of their homeworld by something called the Korthic Empire. The fragmentary message spoke of massive warships appearing in their system without warning. The peaceful Zilani had no military forces to defend themselves. Their planetary shields were failing under constant bombardment. They estimated 72 hours before their world would be completely destroyed. The transmission ended with coordinates and a simple plea repeated in multiple languages. Please help us. Anyone who receives this message, we are dying. Jake stared at the screen for several long moments, his mind racing. The message had taken nearly 8 months to reach the Sol system, which meant the situation on the Zilani homeworld was far worse than the transmission indicated. If the attack had begun 8 months ago, the planet might already be destroyed. He immediately contacted his supervisor, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes, who lived in the residential section of the Luna complex. Her face appeared on his communication screen within minutes, looking concerned and alert despite being awakened in the middle of her sleep cycle. "What do you have for me, Jake?" she asked, already pulling on her duty uniform. Jake transmitted the cleaned-up message to her personal terminal. "Distress signal from the Kepler 442 system, ma'am. Species called the Zilani reporting an invasion by something called the Korthic Empire. The transmission is 8 months old." Lisa studied the message for several minutes, her expression growing more serious with each line. She had been monitoring deep space communications for 15 years and had seen many distress calls, but this one was different. The desperation in the fragmentary transmission was unmistakable, and the technical analysis showed it was genuine. "Get me Admiral Stone's office immediately," she ordered. "Priority Alpha Channel?" Within the hour, the Luna Communications Center was buzzing with activity. Admiral Kevin Stone had arrived from Earth along with a team of specialists. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the Sol System's leading expert on alien cultures, was studying every fragment of the Zilani transmission. Her preliminary analysis painted a disturbing picture. The Zilani are one of the oldest peaceful civilizations in this part of the galaxy, Dr. Rodriguez explained to the assembled team. They've been known to the Galactic Coalition for over 2,000 years. They're herbivorous, completely pacifistic, and have never developed military technology. They've served as mediators in countless disputes between other species. Admiral Stone studied the star charts showing the vast distance to the Kepler 442 system. "What do we know about this Korthic Empire?" "They're a relatively new military power," Dr. Rodriguez replied. Emerged about 50 years ago from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. They specialize in conquering peaceful worlds and enslaving the populations. The Coalition has been trying to contain them, but they're extremely aggressive and well-armed. Jake listened to the discussion with growing concern. The Zilani sounded like decent people who had never hurt anyone, and now they were facing extinction from a species that seemed to exist only to cause suffering. The unfairness of it made his stomach turn. What's the Coalition's response time to the Kepler 442 system? Admiral Stone asked. The nearest Coalition fleet is approximately 4 months away, Dr. Rodriguez answered. But given that this message is already 8 months old, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the implications. If the Korthic Empire had followed their usual pattern, the Zilani homeworld was probably already a smoking ruin populated by slaves working in Korthek. Mining operations, Admiral Stone stood silent for several minutes, studying the technical readouts and distance calculations. The other officers waited patiently, knowing their commander was weighing options that could affect the entire Sol system. Finally, he turned to his communications officer. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a potential humanitarian crisis in the Kepler 442 system. Request immediate consultation with the Galactic Coalition Council. Jake felt a surge of hope. Maybe there was still something that could be done to help the Zilani, even if it seemed impossible. He had grown up hearing stories about humanity's role in the galactic community. Humans were still relatively new to interstellar politics, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 2 centuries ago. Most alien species viewed Earth as a death world, a planet so hostile that only the most resilient creatures could have evolved there. That reputation had served humanity well in some ways. Other species respected human toughness and determination, even if they didn't always understand human motivations. But it also meant that humans were often viewed with suspicion, as if living on such a dangerous world had made them inherently violent or unpredictable. As Jake watched the senior officers coordinate their response to the Zilani distress call, he realized that this crisis might be an opportunity for humanity to show the galaxy something different. Not the dangerous deathworlders that other species feared, but the protective instincts that had helped humans survive on their hostile homeworld. The same drive that made humans fight impossible odds to protect their own might extend to protecting complete strangers who needed help. The next few hours would determine whether the peaceful Zilani civilization would become just another footnote in the Korthic Empire's history of conquest, or whether the cry for aid that had traveled 800 light-years through the darkness of space would finally reach someone willing and able to answer it. Admiral Stone stood in the quantum communications chamber deep beneath Earth Command headquarters, watching technicians establish connection with the Galactic Coalition Council. The massive chamber hummed with energy as exotic particles synchronized across impossible distances, creating an instantaneous link to the Coalition's central headquarters in the Andromeda sector. The holographic displays flickered to life, showing the familiar forms of Coalition leadership from dozens of different species. Admiral Vexery of the Velfin Republic appeared first, her crystalline features reflecting the blue light of the communication array. The insectoid representative of the Hive Collective followed, along with the gaseous form of a nebula dweller contained within its environmental suit. "Greetings, Admiral Stone," Vexery said in her melodic voice. "We received your urgent communication regarding the Zilani situation. I must inform you that we are already aware of the crisis in the Kepler 442 system." Admiral Stone felt his heart sink. What is the current status of the Zilani homeworld? "Unknown," replied the Hive Collective representative through its translation device. "Our last contact with Verdania was approximately 7 months ago. The Korthic Empire has established a communication blockade around the entire system. We must assume the worst." The Nebula Dweller's translator produced a sound like wind through crystal caves. The Coalition has dispatched Battle Group 7 to investigate the situation. However, our fastest ships will require 4 months to reach the Kepler 442 system. Given the timeline of the invasion, this is likely a recovery mission rather than a rescue operation. Admiral Stone studied the star charts that appeared in the center of the holographic display. The vast distances involved were staggering, even by galactic standards. The Kepler 442 system lay at the very edge of explored space, far from any major shipping lanes or military installations. It was exactly the kind of isolated target the Korthic Empire preferred. What do we know about Korthic military capabilities? Admiral Stone asked. Admiral Xerius' expression darkened. They are ruthlessly efficient. Their standard invasion protocol involves surrounding a world with overwhelming force, demanding immediate surrender, and beginning bombardment within hours if compliance is not achieved. Peaceful species like the Zilani never last more than a few days. Dr. Rodriguez had joined the communication session from Earth's Xenobiology Institute. She activated her own holographic display, showing detailed information about Zilani society and culture. The images revealed a beautiful world, covered in vast gardens and crystalline cities that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. The Zilani have been part of galactic civilization for over 2 millennia, Dr. Rodriguez explained. They have never engaged in warfare of any kind. Their entire society is built around artistic achievement, scientific research, and environmental harmony. They have served as neutral mediators in hundreds of interspecies conflicts. The holographic images showed Zilani individuals, tall, graceful beings with pale blue skin and large, gentle eyes. Their architecture was organic and flowing, designed to complement the natural beauty of their world rather than dominate it. Everything about their civilization spoke of peace and cooperation. Their loss would be catastrophic for galactic diplomacy, Dr. Rodriguez continued. The Zilani have prevented more wars than any military force in Coalition history. They are beloved by virtually every peaceful species in the galaxy. Admiral Stone studied the tactical displays showing Coalition fleet positions. Even with their most advanced ships, the time required to cross such vast distances made any rescue attempt impossible. The laws of physics were absolute, and even. The Coalition's best faster-than-light drives had strict limitations. What about emergency protocols? Admiral Stone asked. Surely the Coalition has contingency plans for situations like this. The Hive Collective representative's wings buzzed in what Stone recognized as a negative gesture. No military force in galactic history has successfully mounted a rescue operation across such distances in such a short time frame. The logistical requirements are simply impossible to meet. That was when Captain Ryan Murphy spoke up from his position at the back of the communication chamber. He had been quietly studying the technical specifications displayed on the auxiliary screens, running calculations in his head. As commander of the experimental vessel UES Defiance, he understood the capabilities of humanity's newest technology better than anyone. Admiral, request permission to present an alternative solution, Captain Murphy said. Admiral Stone turned to face his subordinate. Murphy was young for a starship captain, but he had earned his position through exceptional skill and innovative thinking. His service record included several impossible missions that other officers had declared unfeasible. Proceed, Captain. Murphy activated his personal datapad and transmitted technical specifications to the main display. The hologram now showed detailed schematics of the UES Defiance and its experimental propulsion system. The Alcubierre Chun drive installed on. My ship represents a significant advancement over standard Coalition FTL technology, Murphy explained. Our theoretical calculations suggest we could reach the Kepler 442 system in approximately 30 hours. The silence in the communication chamber was absolute. Even the background hum of machinery seemed to pause as the implications of Murphy's statement sank in. Admiral Vexery was the first to respond, her crystalline features showing obvious skepticism. Captain Murphy, with respect to human ingenuity, what you describe is impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the total output of most star systems. Our most advanced civilizations have been working on faster-than-light travel. For thousands of years, the Nebula Dweller's translator produced sounds of agreement. The physics of hyperspace travel are well understood. There are absolute limits to how quickly matter can be moved across such distances without catastrophic molecular disruption. Murphy remained calm in the face of galactic skepticism. The Alcubierre-Chun drive doesn't move the ship through space. In the traditional sense, it creates a bubble of warped spacetime that carries the vessel along with it. Dr. Chun Wei's modifications to the original Alcubierre theory have eliminated most of the energy requirements that made the concept impractical. Dr. Rodriguez studied the technical specifications with growing excitement. As a scientist, she understood the revolutionary implications of what Murphy was describing. "The theoretical framework is sound," she said. "If the drive works as specified, it would represent the most significant advancement in FTL travel since the development of hyperspace navigation." Admiral Thexeria's skepticism remained obvious. Even if such technology exists, the risks would be enormous. Untested experimental drives have a tendency to malfunction catastrophically. You could destroy your entire crew along with any hope of helping the Zilani. Captain Murphy met her gaze directly. "Ma'am, the Zilani are facing certain extinction. They have no military capability and no way to defend themselves against the Korthic Empire. If we don't attempt this rescue, they will all die. The risk to my crew is acceptable when weighed against the certainty of genocide." The coalition representatives exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their opinion of human decision-making processes. To most galactic civilizations, the idea of risking valuable resources and trained personnel to help complete strangers was incomprehensible. Self-preservation was the most basic instinct of any species, and humans seemed to violate this fundamental principle on a regular basis. "The Coalition cannot officially sanction such a mission," Admiral Thexeri said finally. "The risk to human personnel would be unacceptable and the probability of success is minimal. However, we will not prevent Earth from making its own decision regarding this matter." Admiral Stone understood the diplomatic language. The Coalition was giving humanity permission to attempt the impossible, while protecting themselves from responsibility if the mission failed. It was exactly the kind of calculated political response he had expected. As the communication session ended and the holographic displays faded, Admiral Stone found himself facing the most difficult decision of his career. The sensible choice was to follow Coalition advice and accept that the Zilani were beyond help. The human choice was to risk everything on an experimental technology and the slim hope that 30 brave souls could somehow make a difference against impossible odds. He looked at Captain Murphy, who was already reviewing crew assignments and mission parameters on his datapad. The young captain showed no doubt or hesitation, only the quiet determination that had made humanity respected throughout the galaxy. In that moment, Admiral Stone realized that the decision had already been made. The only question was whether Earth Command would officially authorize what Captain Murphy was going to do anyway. Captain Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as his crew prepared for what might be their final mission. The experimental starship floated in Earth's orbital shipyard, surrounded by maintenance platforms and supply vessels. Engineering teams worked around the clock to modify the ship's systems for the unprecedented journey ahead. Murphy had requested volunteers only, making it clear that anyone could withdraw without consequences. Not a single crew member had stepped down. Chief Engineer Maria Santos emerged from the engine compartment, her uniform stained with coolant fluid and her face showing the exhaustion of 36 hours without sleep. She carried a datapad filled with technical modifications that would push the Alcubierre-Chun drive far beyond its tested parameters. "Captain, we've reinforced the primary power conduits and installed additional containment fields around the drive core," Santos reported. "Dr. Chun's calculations show we'll need to maintain field stability at levels never attempted before. If the containment fails during hyperspace transit, the resulting explosion will vaporize everything within 1,000 kilometers," Murphy studied the technical readouts on his command console. The numbers were intimidating, but they represented the Zilani's only hope for survival. "What's your professional assessment, Chief?" Santos looked him directly in the eyes. Sir, by every safety protocol in the engineering manual, this mission should be impossible. The power requirements exceed our reactor's rated capacity by 40%. We're asking components designed for controlled laboratory conditions to operate in the chaos of deep space. If I were being cautious, I'd recommend at least 6 months of additional testing. But, Murphy prompted. But I've been working with experimental drives for 15 years, and I've never seen technology with this much potential, Santos continued. Dr. Chen's modifications are brilliant. The theoretical framework is solid, and our simulations show a 70% probability of successful hyperspace transit. Those aren't terrible odds when you consider what we're trying to accomplish. Murphy nodded and activated his ship-wide communication system. Throughout the UES Defiance, crew members paused in their preparations to listen to their captain's words. This is Captain Murphy speaking. In approximately 6 hours, we will attempt something that every expert in the galaxy considers impossible. We're going to cross 800 light years in 30 hours to save people we've never met from enemies we've never fought. Many of you're probably wondering why we're risking our lives for complete strangers. Murphy paused, looking out through the bridge viewports at the blue marble of Earth floating against the star-filled void. The answer is simple. It's because we're human. Our species evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless natural disasters that would have wiped out most other species. We learned that cooperation and mutual aid weren't just nice ideas, they were the difference between life and death. Throughout the ship, crew members nodded in understanding. Every human child learned about their homeworlds. Hostile history. Earth was classified as a Category 9 death world by galactic standards, a planet so dangerous that most alien species required environmental suits just to visit the surface. Humans had evolved in conditions that would be considered extreme punishment by galactic civilizations. The Zilani are facing extinction, Murphy continued. They have no weapons, no military, and no way to defend themselves. In 800 years of galactic history, no one has ever attempted a rescue mission across such distances. That's exactly why it has to be us. We're the species that does impossible things because someone needs help. Dr. Amy Foster worked in the medical bay preparing emergency supplies for potential Zilani refugees. As the ship's chief medical officer, she had studied every available file on Zilani physiology. Their biological systems were surprisingly similar to humans, which would make treatment easier if they encountered survivors. Dr. Foster, incoming transmission from Earth Medical Command, her assistant announced. The holographic display showed Dr. Patricia Webb, Earth's chief medical advisor. Amy, I've been reviewing your supply requisitions. You're requesting enough medical supplies to treat thousands of patients. The used Defiance only has space for a few hundred refugees at most. Dr. Foster continued organizing trauma kits while she spoke. Ma'am, we don't know what condition the survivors will be in. Korthic invasion protocols typically involve bombardment with exotic weapons that cause radiation poisoning, chemical burns, and massive trauma. I'd rather have supplies we don't need than need supplies we don't have. The additional medical equipment will add significant mass to the ship, Dr. Webb pointed out. Every kilogram matters when you're pushing experimental technology to its limits. Then we'll make room, Dr. Foster replied firmly. I didn't volunteer for this mission to save a few dozen Zilani. If there are survivors on that world, we're going to save as many as possible. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Jackson supervised the loading of military equipment in the ship's armory. His Marine detachment consisted of 40 volunteers, each trained in the extreme environment combat techniques that had made human soldiers legendary throughout the galaxy. They carried weapons and armor designed to function in the hostile conditions found on death worlds. Colonel, the Coalition Tactical Database on Korthic military technology has been updated, Sergeant Danny Kim reported. Their standard invasion force includes approximately 200 ships with total firepower equivalent to a Coalition battle fleet. Jackson studied the enemy force composition on his tactical display. The numbers were overwhelming, but he had faced impossible odds before. Human military doctrine emphasized flexibility, unconventional tactics, and the ability to operate effectively in any environment. These principles had served them well in previous conflicts. Sergeant, our mission parameters don't include engaging the entire Korthak fleet in direct combat, Jackson said. We're going in fast, extracting as many survivors as possible and getting out before they can organize an effective response. Speed and surprise will be our primary advantages. Kim nodded but continued studying the tactical data. Sir, what if the survivors are in areas controlled by Korthak ground forces? Extraction under fire might be necessary. Then we go in and get them, Jackson replied without hesitation. That's what Marines do. Throughout the ship, similar conversations were taking place as each department prepared for their impossible mission. The crew understood the risks, but they also understood something that most galactic civilizations had forgotten. Sometimes the right thing to do was also the most dangerous thing to do, and that was exactly when it mattered most. Dr. Chun Wei made final adjustments to the Alcubierre Chun drive from the engineering deck. The massive device hummed with barely contained energy, its exotic matter containment fields creating rainbow patterns in the air around it. The drive represented 20 years of theoretical research and practical experimentation, all leading to this moment. Dr. Chun were receiving communication requests from 17 different news organizations. His assistant informed him, "They want to interview you about the drive technology." Chun continued his calibrations without looking up. "Tell them they can interview me when we get back. Right now, I have more important things to do than explain physics to reporters." The truth was that Chun himself wasn't entirely certain the drive would work under these conditions. The theoretical models were sound, but experimental technology had a way of producing unexpected results. The difference between success and catastrophic failure might come down to factors too small to measure or predict. As the final preparations neared completion, news of humanity's rescue mission spread throughout the galaxy. Most alien civilizations reacted with confusion and concern. The idea of risking valuable resources and trained personnel to help strangers violated the basic survival instincts that had guided galactic civilization for millennia on dozens of worlds. Alien leaders struggled to understand human motivation. The Deathworlders were known for their toughness and unpredictability, but this mission seemed to cross the line from bravery into insanity. Why would any rational species attempt something so dangerous for people they had never met? The answer lay in humanity's unique evolutionary history. Cooperation had been essential for survival on their hostile homeworld. Humans who abandoned others in need didn't just violate moral principles, they weakened the survival chances of their entire community. This instinct had been reinforced over millions of years until it became as fundamental as breathing. Captain Murphy received final clearance from Earth Command as the UES Defiance prepared to depart. The experimental starship slowly pulled away from the orbital shipyard, its hull gleaming under the light of Sol. Behind them lay the safety of human space, and everything they had ever known. Ahead lay 800 light-years of empty void and a desperate race against time to save a civilization from extinction. As the ship turned toward deep space and prepared to engage its revolutionary drive system, Murphy made one final announcement. To his crew, all hands prepare for hyperspace transit. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when Deathworlders decide to help. The used Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system with a flash of exotic energy that temporarily blinded the sensor arrays. Captain Murphy gripped his command chair as the ship's systems recalibrated after the most extreme faster-than-light journey in galactic history. The experimental drive had performed beyond even Dr. Chun's most optimistic projections, crossing 800 light-years in just 28 hours. "Report," Murphy ordered as his bridge. Crew worked frantically to bring their instruments online. "Navigation confirms our position," Lieutenant Tony Martinez announced from the communications station. "We are at the designated coordinates for system entry. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple energy signatures consistent with active Starship Operations. Dr. Chun Wei emerged from the engineering section, his face showing exhaustion but also triumph. Captain, the Alkubir Chun drive performed flawlessly. All containment fields held steady throughout the transit. We can make the return journey whenever necessary. Murphy nodded with relief, but his attention was already focused on the tactical displays showing the inner system. What they revealed made his blood run cold. The space around Verdania, the Zilani homeworld, was filled with hundreds of massive warships arranged in perfect attack formations. Tactical analysis, Murphy called to his weapons officer. Sir, I'm detecting approximately 215. Korthik vessels of various classes, came the reply. Multiple dreadnought-class ships, escort cruisers, and what appear to be troop transport vessels. They have the planet completely surrounded. The main view screen activated, showing Verdania in the distance. The beautiful blue-green world that Dr. Rodriguez had described was barely visible through the massive orbital bombardment taking place. Explosions flashed continuously across the planet's surface as Korthak weapons pounded the failing defensive. Shields, communications, are you detecting any transmissions from the planet? Murphy asked. Martinez worked his controls with increasing urgency. Sir, I'm picking up fragmentary signals from the surface. The transmission quality is very poor due to interference from the bombardment, but some of the patterns match Zilani. Communication protocols. Murphy felt a surge of hope mixed with determination. The Zilani were still alive and still fighting, despite facing overwhelming odds. The rescue mission wasn't too late after all. Analysis of Korthik fleet positioning. Murphy ordered. His tactical officer studied the enemy formations for several minutes before responding. Captain, their ships are deployed in standard siege configuration. The largest vessels are maintaining orbital bombardment while smaller ships patrol the outer system. Their positioning suggests they're not expecting any external interference. Chief Engineer Santos joined the bridge crew, carrying data pads filled with technical readouts. Captain, our experimental transit attracted considerable attention. I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with active sensor sweeps. The Korthik fleet knows something unusual just happened at the edge of their system. Murphy studied the tactical situation with the analytical mind that had made him one of Earth's most promising starship commanders. The used Defiance was fast, well-armed and equipped with the most advanced technology in human space. But they were still just one ship facing a fleet that could destroy entire star systems. Chief Santos, what's our maximum sustainable speed in normal space? Murphy asked. With the modifications we made for this mission, we can maintain 0.85 light speed for approximately 6 hours before our reactor requires cooldown, Santos replied. That's significantly faster than standard Korthik vessels, which top out around 0.6 light speed. Murphy began formulating a plan based on humanity's greatest tactical advantage, unpredictability. Korthik military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and methodical conquest. They had never faced opponents who specialized in improvisation and unconventional warfare. Dr. Foster, how many Zilani survivors can we accommodate in our medical facilities? Murphy asked. With emergency modifications to our cargo bays, we could treat and transport approximately 400 individuals, Dr. Foster replied. That assumes we can establish basic life support in the auxiliary compartments. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson stepped forward from his position at the tactical station. Captain, request permission to brief you on extraction options. My Marines have been analyzing the surface bombardment patterns and identifying potential landing zones. Murphy nodded and activated the briefing display. Jackson's analysis showed several areas on Verdania where the Korthik bombardment was less intense, probably due to geographic features that interfered with orbital targeting systems. Sir, these locations appear to be mountain ranges and deep canyon systems where natural formations provide some protection from orbital weapons, Jackson explained. If there are Zilani survivors, they would most likely be concentrated in these areas. What about Korthik ground forces? Murphy asked. Unknown, sir. Long-range sensors can't penetrate the bombardment interference well enough to detect individual troop movements. We'll have to assume the planet has been invaded and plan accordingly. Murphy made his decision with the swift certainty that had characterized human military leadership throughout their species' violent history. We're going in. Our mission is to extract as many Zilani survivors as possible and get them to safety. Chief Santos, prepare the ship for high-speed insertion into the inner system. Sir, the Korthic fleet will detect our approach long before we reach Verdania, Martinez warned. They'll have plenty of time to position interceptors. That's exactly what I'm counting on, Murphy replied with a grim smile. Communications, prepare a broad-spectrum transmission on all Korthic military frequencies. The bridge crew exchanged glances as they realized their captain intended to announce their presence to the entire enemy fleet. In conventional military thinking, surprise was one of the most valuable tactical advantages. Murphy was about to throw that advantage away deliberately. Sir, transmission ready, Martinez reported. This is Captain Ryan Murphy of the United Earthship Defiance addressing the Korthak fleet in the Kepler 442 system. You are engaged in the unprovoked bombardment of a peaceful world whose inhabitants pose no military threat to your empire. Cease your attacks immediately and withdraw from this system. The transmission was met with several minutes of silence before a response came through the communication array. The voice was harsh and mechanical, filtered through alien translation. Protocols. Human vessel, you are trespassing in Korthak territory. This system has been claimed by right of conquest. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Murphy had expected exactly this response. Korthak military culture was based on intimidation and overwhelming force. They assumed that any rational opponent would retreat when faced with superior numbers. Negative. Korthak fleet, Murphy replied. The Zilani are under the protection of the Galactic Coalition and the United Earth Government. Continued attacks on civilian targets will be considered acts of genocide. The Korthak response came much faster this time, and the mechanical voice carried obvious anger. You speak of genocide, human? Your single ship against our battle fleet? You will be destroyed as a lesson to others who would interfere with Korthak expansion. Murphy turned to his tactical officer. How many ships are breaking off from the main fleet to intercept us? 15 vessels, sir. Mix of cruisers and destroyers moving to block our approach to the planet. Excellent, Murphy said. That's exactly what we wanted. Chief Santos, engage. Maximum speed toward Verdania. Navigation, plot a course that takes us through the middle of their intercept formation. Santos stared at her captain in amazement. Sir, you want us to fly directly into their trap? Chief, conventional tactics won't work against those odds, Murphy explained. Our only chance is to do something so unexpected that their command structure can't adapt fast enough to counter it. As the UES Defiance accelerated toward the inner system, Murphy explained his strategy to the bridge crew. Human military doctrine emphasized speed, flexibility, and the willingness to take calculated risks that other species would consider insane. They were going to use those advantages to their fullest extent. We're going to hit their intercept. Force at maximum speed, break through their formation, and use our superior maneuverability to avoid their return fire, Murphy said. Once we reach Verdania, we'll use the planet's gravity well and atmospheric interference to mask our movements while the Marines conduct surface operations. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity, which made it perfectly suited to human tactical thinking. As the distance to the Korthak intercept force decreased, every crew member on the UES Defiance prepared for the most dangerous few hours of their lives. General Vorthak, commander of the Korthak siege fleet, watched the approaching human vessel with growing confusion. In 2 decades of conquest, he had never encountered opponents who deliberately flew into obvious traps. The human behavior violated every principle of rational military strategy. Analysis of human vessel capabilities, Vorthak ordered his tactical staff. General, the ship appears to be heavily modified with experimental propulsion systems. Their speed and maneuverability exceed our projections for human technology. Vorthak studied the tactical displays showing his intercept force moving to engage the lone human ship. So the UES Defiance screamed through space at maximum velocity, heading directly into the heart of the Korthik Intercept Formation. Captain Murphy watched the tactical display as 15 enemy warships moved to block their path to Verdania. The distance between the human ship and the alien fleet decreased rapidly, but Murphy showed no signs of changing course. 30 seconds to weapons range, announced the tactical officer. All hands, brace for combat maneuvers, Murphy called over the ship-wide communication system. Chief Santos, prepare for emergency power redistribution on my command. The Korthik ships opened fire first, filling space with energy beams and explosive projectiles designed to destroy anything in their path. Murphy waited until the last possible moment before giving his orders. Hard to starboard, maximum thrust, redirect all power from non-essential systems to engines and shields. Murphy commanded. The used Defiance suddenly changed direction with an acceleration that would have crushed most alien crews against their bulkheads. Human bodies, evolved on a high-gravity death world, could withstand forces that would kill other species. The ship slipped between two Korthik destroyers, missing their hulls by less than 50 meters. Return fire, all weapons, Murphy ordered. The Defiance's weapons systems unleashed concentrated energy bursts that tore through the lightly armored sections of the nearest Korthik vessel. Explosions rippled along the enemy ship's hull as critical systems failed under the unexpected assault. The Korthik formation scattered as their commanders tried to track a target moving faster than their weapons could follow. Damage report, Murphy called as his ship cleared the intercept zone. Minor hull scoring from near misses, Chief Santos reported. All primary systems operating within normal parameters. The experimental drive modifications are holding steady. Murphy felt a surge of pride in his crew and their ship. The used Defiance had been designed and built by humans who understood that sometimes survival required doing impossible things. Every system had been engineered to operate beyond normal safety limits when necessary. Long-range sensors show the main Korthak fleet is repositioning to intercept us before we reach the planet, the tactical officer announced. Murphy studied the enemy movements on his display. General Vorthak was apparently a competent commander who learned quickly from his mistakes. The main fleet was forming a defensive wall around Verdania that would be impossible to break through with conventional tactics. Communications open. A channel to the Korthik flagship, Murphy ordered. Sir, you're giving away our position, Martinez warned. They already know exactly where we are, Murphy replied. What they don't know is what we're planning to do next. The main view screen activated, showing the angular features of General Vorthak. The Korthik commander's expression was a mixture of anger and confusion as he stared at the human captain, who had just humiliated his intercept force. Human, your vessel is impressive, but you cannot fight our entire fleet, Vorthak said through his translator. Surrender now, and your crew will be granted quick deaths. Murphy met the alien general's gaze without flinching. General Vorthak, I challenge you to single combat for the fate of this world. If you win, we'll withdraw and leave the Zolani to their fate. If I win, your fleet leaves this system and never returns. The silence that followed Murphy's challenge was absolute. On dozens of Korthik ships, alien officers stared at their communication screens in disbelief. The concept of single combat to determine the outcome of military campaigns was completely foreign to their conquest-focused culture. You challenge me to personal combat? Vorthak finally responded. One human against a Korthik warrior? This is madness. I take that as a refusal, Murphy said calmly. Your species conquers defenseless worlds but lacks the courage to face a single opponent in fair combat. Murphy cut the transmission before Vorthak could respond. He had achieved exactly what he intended, creating confusion and anger in the enemy. Command structure while buying precious time for his real plan to unfold? Chief Santos, how long until we reach Verdania's upper atmosphere? Murphy asked. 18 minutes at current speed, assuming the Korthik fleet doesn't blow us into atoms first, Santos replied. Murphy activated his personal communication device and contacted Lieutenant Colonel Jackson in the Marine Preparation Area. Colonel, are your teams ready for atmospheric insertion? Sir, we're loaded and ready for immediate deployment. Dr. Foster's medical teams are standing by to treat survivors. Our landing craft have been modified with additional shielding to protect against orbital bombardment. Excellent. Begin final preparations for surface operations. Murphy turned his attention back to the tactical situation. The Korthek fleet was maintaining its defensive formation around Verdania, but their positioning revealed a critical weakness. They were so focused on preventing the UES Defiance from escaping that they had created gaps in their orbital bombardment coverage. Navigation. Plot a course that takes us directly through the center of their formation toward the planet's north polar region, Murphy ordered. Sir, that will take us through the heaviest concentration of enemy ships, the navigator protested. Exactly. Murphy replied. They won't risk firing their heavy weapons when there's a chance of hitting their own vessels. As the UES Defiance approached the Korthek fleet, Murphy implemented the most dangerous part of his plan. Instead of trying to avoid the enemy ships, he flew directly toward the largest concentration of vessels. The Korthek commanders found themselves in an impossible situation. They couldn't fire their most powerful weapons without risking damage to their own fleet. All weapons, target their communication arrays and sensor clusters, Murphy commanded. We don't need to destroy their ships, just blind them temporarily. The Defiance's weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling key systems on multiple Korthek vessels without causing catastrophic damage. The enemy formation dissolved into chaos as ships lost communication with their command structure and collided with each other while trying to track the rapidly moving human vessel. Entering Verdania's upper atmosphere, the navigator announced. Murphy felt the ship shudder as it encountered the planet's atmospheric friction. Below them, the surface of Verdania was a patchwork of devastation and hidden refuges where Zilani survivors waited for help that most of the galaxy had declared impossible. Colonel Jackson, launch all landing craft, Murphy ordered. Find those survivors and get them to safety. The marine landing craft dropped away from the UES Defiance like seeds from a tree, their heat shields glowing as they descended through the turbulent atmosphere. Each craft carried equipment designed for extraction operations on hostile worlds, along with Marines trained to operate in the kind of extreme conditions that were routine on Earth. Dr. Foster monitored the landing operations from the ship's medical bay, which had been converted into a refugee processing center. Captain, we're receiving signals from the surface. The Zilani survivors are responding to our rescue transmission protocols. How many? Murphy asked. Preliminary estimates suggest approximately 3,000 individuals scattered across multiple underground shelters, Dr. Foster replied. Many are injured from the bombardment, but they're alive and organized. Murphy felt a surge of relief mixed with determination. The Zilani had survived 8 months of siege through courage and ingenuity that rivaled anything humans had ever accomplished. They deserved to be saved, and the crew of the UES Defiance was going to make sure that happened on the surface of Verdania. Sergeant Danny Kim led his squad through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful crystalline city. The Korthek bombardment had reduced most of the structures to rubble, but Kim's experience operating in Earth's most hostile environments had taught him to find hidden passages and protected areas that others might miss. Sergeant, detecting life? Signs approximately 200 meters ahead. His scanner operator reported. Kim led his team toward the signal source, moving carefully through debris that could collapse at any moment. They found the entrance to an underground shelter system that the Zilani had carved from the bedrock beneath their city. The first Zilani they encountered was an elderly individual with pale blue skin and large, gentle eyes filled with hope and disbelief. You came, the Zilani elder whispered in broken galactic standard. We thought we were forgotten. Ma'am, we're here to get you to safety, Kim replied. How many survivors are in this shelter? 237 individuals, including 43 young ones, the elder responded. We have injured among us who cannot walk. Kim activated his communication device and contacted Dr. Foster. Medical team to Shelter Complex 7. We need immediate assistance with wounded civilians. Throughout the planet's surface, similar scenes played out as human Marines located Zilani survivors and began the complex process of evacuation under fire. The Marines operated with the efficiency that came from training in Earth's most dangerous environments, where hesitation meant death and teamwork meant survival. Above them, Captain Murphy piloted the UES Defiance through increasingly desperate attacks from the Korthik fleet. General Vorthak had reorganized his forces and was systematically trying to destroy the human ship before it could compel